Listen to me carefully, because what you're about to discover is not taught in any school, yet it has the power to completely change how women see you, want you, and chase you. Most men think seduction is about looking good, saying the right things, or being the funniest guy in the room. But the true seducers, the ones who enter a woman's mind and never leave, are playing a completely different game. They use weapons, psychological weapons, invisible tools that don't make a sound, can't be seen, but can be deeply felt. They're subtle, almost undetectable techniques that manipulate perception, emotion, and desire without a woman even realizing it. It's like a virus, one that slips into her mind and quietly starts rewiring her attention until it's locked on you. And before you feel any guilt about what you're about to learn, let me tell you something. The world is already full of men being manipulated. Men who do everything for a woman and still get ignored, replaced, betrayed. Using these weapons doesn't make you a villain. It makes you free. Free from begging, from chasing, from living in fear of rejection. Because when you understand the psychology behind female desire, and you know how to trigger it without forcing, pleasing, or proving, you've stepped into a different level of the game. And there's no going back. So listen closely, because these psychological weapons are not explained with empty theory. They are lived. And if you're ready to stop being a spectator in your dating life and become the kind of man women remember even when they're lying in bed with someone else, then stay with me. Because in this video, I'm going to reveal the 4 psychological weapons used by master seducers. Not beginners, not guys repeating lines from TikTok. Real strategists of female desire. Men who, as Robert Greene would say, don't just seduce, they rule. The first psychological weapon has nothing to do with what you say. It has everything to do with what you project when you say nothing. True seducers understand that mystery is a form of power. And that power comes from silence, from presence, from the rhythm of your movements. There is no anxiety in a master, no urgency, because he already knows he is desirable, whether she's confirmed it or not. This triggers a phenomenon in female psychology known as emotional dissonance. She doesn't understand why she's drawn to you, and that confusion becomes addictive. When you don't explain yourself, when you don't try to impress her, when you don't react the way others do, she starts to wonder why you're different. That question doesn't happen with words. It happens in her body, in the quiet tension that makes her think of you without knowing why. That's the first weapon, emotional control, projected as active indifference. And this is fundamental because most men make the mistake of filling every silence with noise, explaining who they are, what they do, why they should be loved. But the true seducer knows that mystery isn't decoration. It's a trap, one that captures a woman's attention far more effectively than any compliment or dramatic story. Think James Bond, think Tony Montana, even Christian Grey. None of them begged, and yet women were drawn to them. Because in their presence there was tension, and tension, when unresolved, becomes attraction. Now, if mystery is the first weapon, the second is emotional ambiguity. This technique is so powerful it's been studied for decades in behavioral psychology. It's all about being unpredictable, about mixing signals in a way that keeps her in a controlled state of uncertainty. One day you make her feel like the only woman in the world. The next, you pull back and go cold. But listen carefully. This is not about being cruel. It's not about playing with someone's feelings recklessly. It's about creating an emotional roller coaster that activates dopamine. Because when the brain doesn't know if it will be rewarded, desire spikes. The same happens when a woman doesn't know if she has you or if she's about to lose you. And elite seducers master this art, because they understand that the opposite of love isn't hate, it's certainty. Studies on intermittent reinforcement in behavioral psychology show that unpredictable rewards create more addiction than predictable ones. The same principle behind slot machines. And when you use emotional ambiguity correctly, you become her personal casino, one she can't stop playing. That's why your messages shouldn't always be instant. Your reactions shouldn't be automatic. Your attention shouldn't be guaranteed. Because if it is, it has no value. And a woman will always value more what she can't fully understand, but makes her feel alive. I promise you, by now you've already started remembering that one guy who seemed untouchable. The one who always had a certain something you couldn't quite read. And for some reason, women were obsessed with him, even if he wasn't the best looking or the funniest. That guy knew something the rest didn't, and he used it. Now, so can you. The third psychological weapon used by master seducers operates beneath the surface of normal interaction. It's not about what she sees, it's about what she feels when she's with you, without understanding why. And it's rooted in the concept of emotional anchoring. This tactic involves deliberately associating your presence with specific feelings inside her nervous system. Feelings like excitement, comfort, risk, power, safety, even danger. You become the emotional fingerprint that she can't shake off. And this goes beyond conversation. It's about creating an emotional echo that stays with her long after you've walked away. Let me explain it in simple terms. When you make a woman feel a strong emotional state while you're around her, especially one she doesn't usually feel, you become linked to that feeling in her brain. This is not some mystical trick. It's neuroscience. The amygdala and the limbic system in the brain are wired to pair emotions with context. And if you can control the context, you control the association. If every time she sees you she feels more alive, more feminine, more stimulated, she will crave your presence even when she's not aware of it. And this is where master seducers operate with surgical precision. They know that words fade, but emotional memory sticks. So how do you anchor an emotion in a woman's nervous system? You start by paying attention to the energy in every moment. If she's nervous, you don't calm her down, you heighten it. If she's intrigued, you don't resolve the mystery, you intensify it. You don't neutralize her feelings. You amplify them and connect yourself to the experience. Think of it like music. Some men try to mute the emotions of a woman to make things comfortable. But the seducer turns up the volume, changes the rhythm, and plays with contrast. Because contrast is what the mind remembers. A kiss after an argument, a laugh in the middle of tension, a whisper in a room full of silence. These things leave imprints. And here's the nuance that most men completely miss. You don't anchor emotions with logic. You do it with presence. When you are fully grounded in the moment, fully connected to your own sensations, your energy becomes contagious. And women, whether they admit it or not, are biologically tuned to feel the state of a man beyond his words. If you radiate tension, she feels it. If you radiate confidence, she absorbs it. And when you use your energy to guide her state, you create a chemical reaction, one that doesn't need persuasion, one that doesn't require permission. She just feels something, and that something becomes unforgettable. Now we move into the fourth weapon, arguably the most dangerous because it triggers her ego, her imagination, and her sense of self all at once. This one is about identity disruption. Most women walk through life with an internal script about who they are. I'm independent. I don't fall easily. I know what I want. But when she meets a man who doesn't fit into her mental categories, her identity starts to shake, and that shaking creates obsession. Why? Because people, especially women, are addicted to self-consistency. When you disrupt the version of herself she thought was solid, she begins to question everything. And guess who becomes the focal point of that internal earthquake? You. Here's how master seducers use identity disruption. They mirror back aspects of the woman she hasn't owned yet. Maybe she's always in control, but with you, she feels submissive, and it shocks her. Maybe she's guarded, but with you, she feels raw and exposed. Maybe she's used to leading, but you make her follow effortlessly. In every case, you're not telling her what she is. You're making her feel like something she didn't know she could be. And that experience is addictive, because it gives her a new dimension of herself. You become the man who awakened a version of her she didn't know existed. The truth is, most men try to appeal to who a woman already is. The seducer? He doesn't care who she is now. He speaks to the woman she hasn't met yet. He's the gateway, the interruption, the glitch in her matrix. And because of that, she starts to think about you not as just a man, but as a mirror of her deepest potential. This is why some women say, I don't know what it is about him. He just gets me. But what they're really saying is, he made me feel like more than I thought I was. And that, my friend, is a craving that no amount of logic can kill. The power of these four weapons is not in how loud they are, but in how subtly they shift her internal world. Mystery, ambiguity, emotional anchoring, identity disruption. They aren't tricks, they're tools, psychological devices that, when used with awareness and precision, make you unforgettable, not because you chase her, but because you become the experience she can't explain. Let's go deeper now, because what separates a true master from a skilled amateur isn't just technique, it's intention. It's why you're doing what you're doing beneath the surface. And that's where the psychological game truly begins. The master seducer doesn't use these weapons randomly. He calibrates each one based on the woman in front of him. He reads her like a map, not to control her, but to invite her into an emotional experience she can't find anywhere else. He doesn't seduce for sex. He seduces because he understands something most men don't. Women don't want another man trying to impress them. They want to lose themselves in someone they don't understand. That's the true addiction, the unfamiliar, the unpredictable. The man who brings them closer to their own edge. And that edge is where transformation happens. That's what the seducer plays with, not just attention, not even attraction, but identity evolution. He becomes the symbol of something more: danger, freedom, contradiction. He doesn't just mirror what she's used to. He represents what she never dared to want. That's why she can't get him out of her head, because he's not competing with other men, he's competing with her fantasies and winning. To reach this level, you need to understand that seduction is not linear. It's layered. What you say is only one layer. But your body language, your energy, your ability to hold silence, your control over your own reactions, those are the real weapons. A man who has no emotional reactivity becomes a challenge. And challenge, to the feminine mind, is a puzzle. She wants to figure you out. But every time she thinks she's close, you shift slightly. Not to play games, but because you're not fixed. You're not seeking her approval. You're moving from your own internal compass. That unpredictability is magnetic because it suggests freedom. And a woman, whether she admits it or not, is most drawn to a man who can't be domesticated. This brings us to a nuance that almost no one talks about: psychological asymmetry. The master seducer never plays the same role twice. With one woman, he's the storm. With another, he's the calm. He adapts, but never submits. He shifts without losing himself. That creates a paradox in her mind. How can a man be so present with me and yet not be dependent on me? That paradox is what keeps her coming back, because it touches on a deep feminine need to feel chosen by a man who doesn't need to choose her. And when she feels that, when she feels desired but not possessed, close but not in control, her rational mind detaches and her emotional body takes over. Now let's speak about linguistic framing, because even your words, if used with subtlety, can guide a woman's emotions without her realizing it. The seducer doesn't say, "I like you." He says, "There's something about you that doesn't quite make sense, and I like that." See the difference? One is a declaration. The other is an invitation to mystery. And women don't fall in love with facts. They fall in love with questions that can't be answered. Questions like, what is it about this man that makes me feel this way? That's why vague compliments work better than specific ones. You're different leaves more room for projection than you're beautiful. And projection is one of your most powerful tools. Because when a woman projects her own meaning onto your words, she becomes emotionally invested without knowing why. But all of this collapses if your core isn't solid. Because no technique can compensate for a man who doesn't believe in his own worth. The seducer knows he is the prize, not because he says it, but because he lives it. He doesn't chase approval. He doesn't seek validation. His value is internal, unshakable. And that stability is what makes him so damn rare in a world full of men bending over backwards for attention. Women sense it instantly. They can't describe it, but they feel it. It's in your eyes, in your breath, in the way you take up space without apology. You become the gravity in the room. Not because you try to be, but because you are. And this is where seduction transcends strategy and becomes identity. You're no longer doing things to attract her. You've become the man who attracts without effort. You've integrated the weapons into your way of being. You don't apply mystery. You embody it. You don't use ambiguity. You naturally create contrast because you're not afraid of space. You don't anchor emotions. You're simply present enough for her to lose her sense of time around you. You don't disrupt identity. You reveal parts of her that she didn't know existed just by being unapologetically yourself. And that's the final shift most men never make. They learn seduction as a set of tactics, but they never let it change who they are. The master seducer lives in seduction, not as manipulation, but as art, a dance of polarity, a tension between freedom and surrender, between masculine presence and feminine chaos. He's not afraid of her power. He welcomes it. He challenges it. And in doing so, he becomes unforgettable. Not because he conquered her, but because he awakened something in her that no other man dared to touch. There's one more layer most men will never even glimpse. And yet, it's the silent force that holds all the others together. Psychological contrast. This is not just about being mysterious or unpredictable. It's about embodying two opposing forces at once and letting her feel both. Strength and softness, command and calm, depth and danger. The mind of a woman is drawn not to a man who is perfect, but to a man who is complex, because complexity gives her room to explore, to project, to imagine. And a woman who is imagining is a woman who is investing. Let's make this real. You can be the man who holds her gaze with quiet confidence, and also the man who walks away without a word. You can laugh with her like she's the only one in the room, and then vanish into your own world like she never fully had you. This contrast doesn't confuse her, it captivates her. It keeps her chasing not just you, but the experience of you. And that's the secret most men never discover. It's not about being liked. It's about being felt, so deeply, so unexpectedly, that her nervous system starts associating you with aliveness. And when that happens, logic dies, resistance weakens, and desire takes over. Now here's the real twist. Women don't just fall for the man you are, they fall for how they feel about themselves when they're around you. If you activate a version of her that's more feminine, more free, more wild, or more grounded than usual, you become more than a man. You become an experience, an amplifier of her emotional reality. A seducer doesn't focus on being impressive. He focuses on being immersive. He creates a space where she drops her defenses, where she feels safe enough to be vulnerable, but stimulated enough to stay alert. That tension between comfort and excitement, that's the edge. That's where she gets addicted. And it's not about doing a million things right. In fact, sometimes it's about doing less, saying less, revealing less. Master seducers don't speak to fill silence. They speak to pull her in. Every word is placed with weight. Every pause creates anticipation. Every touch, when it comes, feels earned. The less available you make your attention, the more valuable it becomes. The less predictable your energy, the more she wants to decode you. You become a question that lingers, a tension that stays unresolved. And she comes back again and again, trying to figure out what makes you different. And yet, the most potent seduction doesn't come from calculated lines or behavioral tricks. It comes from alignment, from being a man who is fully rooted in his own masculine energy, not as a performance, but as a natural state. You walk into the room and the room adjusts. You make eye contact, and time stretches. You don't chase. You don't convince. You exist in a way that interrupts the flow of her reality. That's why women feel something around you even if you haven't said a word. That's why she dreams about you without understanding why. Because here's the brutal truth. Most men try to get a woman's attention by adding compliments, adding validation, adding effort. But the true seducer removes. He removes the need to explain, the need to perform, the need to prove. And in that emptiness, something rare happens. She starts to fill in the gaps with her own meaning, her own emotions, her own projections. And the more she fills in, the more of herself is invested in you. That's when it's no longer about attraction. It's about possession. Not in the toxic sense, but in the psychological sense. You now live inside her, not because you forced your way in, but because you created the space for her to enter and never want to leave. That's the essence of psychological seduction. You don't take her, you become the place she doesn't want to escape. And here's the final layer most never even think to explore: stillness. Seduction, at its highest level, is not a chase. It's a gravitational pull. And gravity doesn't move. It doesn't chase. It doesn't ask. It just is. And everything around it adjusts. The most powerful men don't seduce with effort. They seduce with presence, with the intensity of being. And when you are fully in that state, unshaken, unapologetic, self-contained, everything else becomes unnecessary. She'll lean in. She'll chase the silence between your words. She'll try to find the pieces of you that you haven't even revealed yet. Because the game is no longer about winning her. It's about holding your position so strongly that she voluntarily steps into your world and asks to stay. And now that you know, there's no going back. These psychological weapons, once understood, can't be unseen. You've crossed a threshold, a point of no return. You're no longer the man who wondered why certain women disappeared, why others lost interest, or why you felt invisible even when you gave your best. Now you see the game, but more importantly, now you know you can master it. What I've shown you here isn't some shallow theory or pickup line trick. This is real psychology, human behavior. These are patterns the most magnetic men in the world have studied, refined, and used with precision. This isn't about manipulation. It's about choice. Choosing to stop living in fear. Choosing to stop being the man who gives everything and gets nothing. Choosing to become the kind of man who doesn't need to chase. Because he becomes the experience women crave, even when they can't explain why. And if this opened your eyes, if something I said lit a fire inside of you, then let it grow. Don't keep it to yourself. Share this video with a brother, a friend, someone you know who's stuck being the nice guy but never the one women desire. Drop a comment below and tell me which of these weapons you're going to start using first. I want to hear your story. I want to witness your transformation, because you're not alone in this. There are thousands of us who've chosen to stop surviving the game and start owning it. If you haven't subscribed yet, hit that button now. This channel is for men who refuse to settle for what the world told them to be. It's for those who want to understand the female mind, master their presence, and live from power, not from need. Every video I make is built to give you real tools. No fluff, just psychology, strategy, masculine energy. And if this video resonated with you, hit that like button. It's the simplest way to help this message reach other men who, just like you, are ready to stop being invisible and start being unforgettable. I'll see you in the next video, brother. But the next time a woman crosses your path, you won't be the same. Because now, you carry weapons. Invisible, silent, irresistible.